Let's do everything we do, great and small, with love, with so much love. I'm doing this video with love. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the most helpful steps in this journey of letting go of all the ego attachments, especially the most intense and painful ones that we encounter all the time as spiritual students. And the whole purpose is so that we can truly walk the talk and live the love and feel that we're making steady spiritual progress every day. So, what I'm going to share with you are the things that I've done that have helped me tremendously. They have completely changed my life. I kid you not. Now, look, it took me decades to figure this out, but once I did, and I actually followed through and did these things, my life changed forever. And because of that, I've been able to help hundreds, many hundreds of people to do the same as me. And so I know that it works. Now, this is number 4 of videos in this series. And in the first 3 videos, I shared with you how to avoid the classic mistakes that spiritual students almost always make. And the second video was how to know if the methods you're using are actually working. So valuable. And then I gave you a simple tool in the third video to quickly increase your spiritual growth and happiness. And I hope you're already using it. Yes. Something you can know about me is for about 2 decades before I got really clear with the steps I'm going to share with you in this video, I was searching. I was a seeker and I was searching for the magic door, the secret formula to break through to being more spiritual. And the more I searched and tried a gazillion different things and read a ton of books, listened to a bazillion audios and workshops, and did so many things, all of which helped me a little bit, always just a little bit here and a little bit there, but it didn't bring me the breakthroughs that I was looking for and that I deeply felt I could have if I could just figure out how. And the more I couldn't figure out how, and I was doing all this research and doing all this studying, collecting all this information, the more I felt like the problem wasn't that I couldn't find the right thing. It was that I was the problem. And it's that belief that actually made things so much harder for me. So now that I know what I know, I am only interested in permanent healing and lasting healing and truly getting her done. As I say, I'm not interested in temporary changes in my behavior or my circumstances that give me a temporary sense of feeling full, right? Like after you've eaten a meal, you feel full, but you're just going to get hungry again. Not interested in that anymore. I'm not interested in just being occupied with spiritual things. I am interested in the permanent healing of the patterns and the false beliefs and the suffering, healing it back to the root cause so I never experience it again. That's what I'm interested in. And I'm pretty sure you are too, or why would you even be listening to me, right? So let me share with you some of the key steps to walk in the talk and live in the love. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you now a clear pathway to making lasting transformation. And it's also an opening of your intuition as well as a deepening of your trust and faith. So you might actually wish to take notes. I'm gonna share with you some of the key steps, 7 of them, in fact. So first, let me say, when you start to realize that the healing you're having is permanent and it is back to the root cause, so you never experience it again, then you can breathe a sigh of relief because you're doing it. It's happening. Spiritual awakening begins to feel possible. When you can start to receive intuition and inspiration, divine guidance, and you know that what you're getting is real, it's real, authentic insight from your higher Holy Spirit self, not some ego trickery, because the two things feel so different. When you learn that, it makes such a clear difference. It really does. The ego thoughts and the spiritual guidance, these two things have such a different vibrational feeling, a tone, and you can learn to recognize that, and you start to build some confidence from it. And the reason is because now you're on your way to making truly better decisions, truly higher choices, and you're feeling a steady increase in your confidence that you are living your life in love and walking the talk. It's a wonderful thing to begin to get that sense of clarity that that's really happening. Everything feels more productive with love, with that sense of you're imbuing what you're doing with real love. And then you truly stop feeling like a failure. At least I did. And it's because you're deepening your faith, and because you're having more and more experiences where you've been able to trust your guidance and you know it well. You truly recognize you're following your guidance, it's working. You get a sense of assurity, and you can really feel it in your energy field, let's call it that. So with faith, not only are all things possible, there's a tremendous sense of relief. That's what I found. Tremendous sense of relief that you're not on your own anymore. You're not trying to figure it all out by yourself anymore, because that's how I felt for a long time. And when you start following that guidance, you really get this sense that spirit is actually with you. It's like having the smartest person in the world who knows your whole life and all the permutations of every choice you could ever make, and knows all there is to know about you and how everything's going to affect you. And that person who knows everything so much better than you do is guiding you to the highest and best. It is a magnificent feeling. There's nothing like it. And there's no going back, because who doesn't want that? Why would you give that up for what? For nothing. So that's what I'm inviting you to. I'm going to share my blueprint, my program for being able to walk the talk and live the love. And when you do these things, you're naturally going to accomplish the healing that you desire. You're naturally going to develop your intuition the way you desire, and you're going to build your trust and faith. So, first step in my program is commitment. Everybody comes in with different levels of commitment. I felt my whole experience began to change, and the healing really began to quicken when I decided to go all in for spirit, when I decided to really make my spiritual healing and transformation my number one priority. Now, I want to be clear. I did this even though I was 100% convinced this stuff works for other people, but it doesn't work for me because there's something wrong with me. That's where I started from. However, in my heart, my yes was 100%. My yes was really there. Remember this from Start with Yes. That's why I say start with yes, because my yes was really there. That was my willingness. And since willingness is all that's required, it made all the difference in the world. And I see this happening for people all over the place. So let's just start with willingness. And it's a commitment to being all in to the best of your ability, even if you're not really all in. It's just to the best of your ability in that moment, starting there. That's what I did. And it took me a long time to get to that place of saying, okay, now I'm going to put my focus on my spiritual growth and development, knowing or at least believing or hoping that this would then take care of any other healing that I needed. And for me, it was a lot about relationships, it was a lot about finances, it was a lot about just spiritual awakening and feeling good about myself. And so let me break this down for you about this all in. So, my all in commitment did not mean that I didn't fall down and blow it about 1,000 times a day. I kid you not. That's what I was also talking about a bit in the last video. It's not about doing it perfectly, it's about here in your heart, you're committed to getting up when you fall down. So, this is not about not falling down, it's about the quality of your being able to get up, dust yourself off, and start again. So that's what I learned to do. Now, being willing is, in a sense, it's the only thing that we really have to have. Not in a sense, it truly is, and it's the willingness to be consistent is hard to find in people. But if you have a willingness to be consistent, it doesn't mean you are consistent. It means you're willing to become consistent. Now, in the Manual for Teachers of A Course in Miracles, in chapter 4, which is the characteristics of God's teachers, the second characteristic is honesty. And Jesus defines honesty as consistency. So I just think of consistency as the number 2 characteristic of God's teachers. So that's important for us to understand. It's a willingness to be consistent. You don't have to already be consistent, but the willingness to be consistent, the aspiration to be consistent is powerful, so that when you fall down and you forget to get back up, you get upset. That's normal. But you can then eventually remember, oh, it's time for me to be consistent. Oh, I need to go back to being all in. So you reboot yourself in that moment by partnering up with the Holy Spirit. And what's miraculous in healing is when you have this commitment to get back up with methods that really work. You can just use the methods, you don't have to figure it out, right? You use the methods that work, that you know work. Then over your practice, and it's not about time, it's really about your willingness and your commitment, you will absolutely stop falling down as much and as often and as hard. So, not falling down as much, not falling down as often, and not falling down as hard makes life easier and easier. And you have a very tangible sense it's working, it's working. And that propels you. It's like rocket fuel. It makes you begin to feel like, I can do it. And it does work for you. It really does work. And that's so exciting because you begin to build some enthusiasm and some momentum, and it gets a whole lot easier. And that is what I like. So I love to see when people get to that point because it truly is. It's thrilling. It's thrilling. It's turning a corner. You don't go back. Really, you don't go back. So you and I know it can be so discouraging to be in any kind of mental, emotional, or physical pain for a long time. That's why one of my favorite things is to work with people who've been in that place for a long time to support them in getting out of it. When I was so convinced that nothing could work for me, I was discouraged. I was discouraged. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd come to consciousness and I'd think, ugh, back here again, right? That sense of dread that I used to have for my day. Ugh. But when we start to speed heal, right? We start to speed up this healing, then you're going to see the healing in every area of your life. And we can apply that to you have some success in one area, you can apply it to another and another and another, and it becomes like a spiral effect of healing, spiraling up. And that's what I love. When we're spiraling up, we're seeing and feeling steady progress. And that success starts to spiral out to everybody in your life, to your family, to your friends, to your community, to your coworkers. And what's beautiful is you don't have to talk with them about it because all minds are joined. You start to see the shifts and changes rippling out from you. Course in Miracles. Seek not to change the world, but change your mind about the world. It actually works. All right, so all of that is the first step. Now, the second step is to truly forgive the past. Forgiveness is the way. This is what Jesus tells us in A Course in Miracles. Forgiveness is the way out of hell, is how I think of it. So I had to learn exactly what forgiveness is and, importantly, what it's not. And that's what I've been teaching for 20 years because oh my gosh, there's so many misconceptions about forgiveness. And many people who teach forgiveness really don't understand it. I've been teaching true and real forgiveness for more than 20 years, and I have learned a lot about it. It's been a long journey of tremendous healing and transformation, and I am so, so grateful for everything I know about forgiveness because the path of forgiveness is a fast path of healing. Yeah, and still, it's not without effort. You do have to work, but you can get so much done faster because let's face it, when I began this, I had a ton of resentments. I had a ton of regrets and guilt and blame and shame. And all of that stuff is unforgiveness. It took me years to work through all of that and to have this major heart healing and transformation. But I learned how to do it and to cut the time down to a fraction of what it would have been without the methods I discovered. And that's what's so exciting. And that's why we can have tremendous healing very quickly. This forgiveness work is no joke. It does require real attention. And that's where most people, let's put it this way, it's not for the timid. It's for people who are really, really willing to look at their stuff. But I'm not talking about rolling around in the mud. No, not interested in that. But just being willing to take responsibility and look at your stuff, and to be willing to take responsibility is not for everybody. It's not. A lot of people still want to be in blame, and blame was one of my main things. So I'm so glad that I found that I could get myself out of that, just cycling that hamster wheel of blame through forgiveness. Now, the third step in my program is building trust and faith, to build a very active faith that literally can move mountains, as it says in A Course in Miracles. The way to do that is through trust. Course in Miracles says that trust is the number one characteristic of God's teachers. And I find that trust is an issue that a lot of spiritual students have over and over and over again. Spiritual students, when we drill down into it in a counseling session, one-on-one, they'll say, trust is my issue. Well, that's why trust is the number one characteristic of God's teachers, because trust is everybody's major issue. So when we can really work on that trust and build the trust and faith, so much healing happens. And people just, it's so common for people to find it very difficult to trust. And what happens then when we're not trusting is we're managing and coping and trying to solve our problems, which usually just affirms our problems. Oy, it's a vicious circle. And we are trying to solve our problems. If we're not doing forgiveness, we're trying to solve our problems by trying to rearrange things in the world. You may have heard me talking about that. It's like trying to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic without recognizing, hey, this ship is going down. Instead, let's get off the ship. Let's get off the ship altogether and find a better mode of transportation than the ego. So, this managing and coping, I call it pushing density. When we're trying to solve problems by changing things in the world, I call it pushing density. And let me just say, I don't need to tell you this, but let's just be clear, pushing density is exhausting. The Spirit gave me that term and it is helpful. I've learned to work in the invisible at the level of the mind. This is what A Course in Miracles teaches us. And it is the opposite of pushing density. And that's where the real work takes place, here at the level of the mind. And that's where things can happen so quickly. We can truly have a quantum healing, miraculous healing. You know what a quantum leap is, right? A quantum leap is when you go from here to here without traveling. You just disappear from here and appear here, but you don't travel. That is how we are meant to learn, to live, to wake up, and to be as spiritual students. But we've forgotten that, and we can remember that. So I like to do it. That's how I like to do it now in quantum leaping. I'm thinking of that song. That's the way we do it. So that's how I like to do it now, quantum leaping. And the more we do the forgiveness work, the more the quantum leaping is available to us. The more we are naturally starting to work in the invisible and stop pushing density. So many times I will call somebody and they will say to me, I was just thinking of you. I say that's because you're good at picking up my signals. So it's interesting when we're tuned into that one mind, how much things change. Working at the level of the mind in the invisible rather than pushing density makes life joyous. We can just exhale now. We can breathe. We can stop that sense of tension like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? We learn to trust. Building trust and faith, we have a whole different experience of our life. You know, people often tell me, I hear it so much actually. People often say, oh, you get so much done. I don't know how you do it, because I'm always offering so many wonderful opportunities. And I have found that I can get so much more done because I'm following spiritual guidance and not trying to figure everything out and do it myself. So, this working at the level of the mind has just untold benefits. Okay, let me get to my fourth step. This is a tough one for some people. And this step is stop judging everything. Now, when I tell this to people who are just starting out with me, they will often say uh, that, I'm just not that judgmental, Jennifer. Or they'll tell me later, boy, when you said just stop judging, I thought, well, that's not a big deal for me. I'm not very judgmental. And then after they've been doing the work with me for a few months, just a few months, they will start to realize, OMG, I'm practically judging all the time. And that's what I realized. I was just constantly in judgment, in condemnation. I was complaining all the time. And people think, oh, I'm the least judgmental person I know, but they're not. And so being able to offload all those judgments makes for a major transformation in their relationships and in their experience of their intuition, because now those judgments, which are the blocks to love, are dissolving. And so there aren't blocks to love anymore, or they're fading and our attachment to them is fading. So now we can really begin to open up to Spirit's guidance for us and receive it. And part of it is we feel worthy of it the more loving and compassionate we are. When we're really judgmental and complaining and attacking and filled with resentment and hurt and guilt and shame and these things, we've got so many blocks to love, we can't easily discern what the guidance is that we're getting. And so we reject Spirit's guidance, oftentimes thinking it's ego. And then we accept ego guidance, oftentimes thinking it's Spirit's guidance. It's tricky when our mind is just cluttered with all this judgment and all these complaints and being offended and things like that. So every one of our judgments is a block to love, and we can get let them all go. And what happens is, as we really make that progress, we can also now begin to recognize what are the loving choices available to us in the moment. So this naturally inspires us to make more loving choices. And the more loving choices we make, the more healing that we have, because in truth, love is the only healer. Love is our true identity. Love is what we are. Teach only love, for that is what you are. So when we make loving choices, we're aligning with our higher self. We're aligning with the transformation. We're aligning with the inspiration. And so it's deeply healing and nourishing to us. So we are in every moment, we're making choices, right? And people say it's love or fear. And I tend to think of it as unity or separation. And we get back into the flow of love, which is always there waiting for us when we are choosing love. The more we let go of the blocks to love, the more we recognize the choice for love. It just becomes so apparent to us. And things that in the past we would have done that seemed like loving choices, we now recognize are not loving choices. For instance, one of the big ones is giving to get, right? So many spiritual students are very giving and very generous, so it seems. But if you don't feel appreciated, if you don't feel recognized, then you are giving to get. And giving to get is manipulative, giving to get approval, appreciation, recognition, to get some sense of feeling good about myself because I'm giving. All of that is codependency, and all of that is ego behavior that ultimately will make us feel just bad. The other thing that starts to happen is we let go of the need to be right all the time and fighting to be right. And for me, I used to have such a deep insecurity that I tried to control everything. And one of the things I always needed to be was right. So following intuition makes life so much easier. And it's not that we're right, but we know we're making the right choice. We know we're making the loving choice. And many spiritual students, you may recognize this, actually start to prefer to be alone because they're so troubled by their judgmental thoughts. But they think that why they prefer to be alone is because they prefer the silence, they prefer the opportunity to do their spiritual practice and things like that, and that other people and their low vibration is bothering them. But that's not what's going on at all. What's going on is that we're getting triggered and we're judging other people and we don't like it. So it makes us want to be alone because we feel guilty and bad and ashamed for our judgments. And when we're letting all of that go, then, as I was saying, we get more and more inspiration. And I can tell you that I could never, ever have built this ministry on my own, but I put spirit in charge. And that was a turning point for me. I put spirit in charge for real, not just lip service, but really from my heart. I put spirit in charge. And then I began to get the guidance that just made it so much easier to build this ministry. And I could finally begin to hear more clearly. And that's how I got all these steps. I didn't make them up. Spirit gave them to me, and I just kept following Spirit. So, what I know is that it's like Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount that this is for people who have ears to hear and eyes to see. Well, we all have ears to hear and eyes to see. But if our ears and our eyes are cluttered with our judgments, if we've got all these blocks to love, then we won't have the ears to hear and the eyes to see. We won't be um, tuning into them. We're more interested in our opinions and judgments. So, step number 3 in my program is to develop a strong and effective spiritual practice that you can carry with you anywhere you go all day long. And truly, the key to that is a practice of effective, affirmative prayer. Effective spiritual practice is effective, affirmative prayer. Not only that, but that is a major part of it. And so prayer is an extraordinary tool of transformation. But most people never really learned how to pray in a way that brings extraordinary results, mostly because they don't feel worthy of miraculous healing. It's another case of where you don't have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. You have not magnetized into your life yet that powerful prayer practice because you don't feel worthy of it. So for me, learning to pray effectively and praying often was like, oh my God, this is the tool of a lifetime. And it is one of the just, it becomes something so valuable in your life, you won't go anywhere without it. And you've always got it because you don't need any equipment, you don't need anybody else's help. You've got that prayer. It's so confidence building to have a truly effective prayer practice. And that leads me to number 6. My number 6 step in my program is to have prayer partners. These are people who can hold the highest and best for you and who won't judge you or criticize you, who truly honor you and respect you right where you are. A prayer partner is someone you can talk openly with, who's also on the path and has the same kind of goals of healing and transformation and deepening trust and faith, increasing intuition, and being happy, being joyful, being all in for God. So, prayer partners are there for you when you feel like quitting, which is inevitable. It's inevitable that there are some days you're just going to feel like, oh, MG, this is so hard. And you might I can remember feeling, why am I doing this? This is so hard. Just to be loving, consistently loving feels so hard. Oh my God, why am I making myself do this? But when you have a strong, good prayer partner, then you can call them up. You can connect with them, even a simple text message. I need a prayer right now. Can you pray for me? Even if you don't meet on the phone or something like that, that person can text you back and say, "I got you." And then you feel lifted by prayer. I feel lifted by prayer all the time. And I have so many people in my life that put out a prayer call, and boom, you're in that prayer for that person and they feel lifted, and then they now can see more clearly and know more clearly, and it's powerful. So having a prayer partnership is beautiful, and having multiple prayer partnerships, mwah, so good. We all benefit from having mighty companions to walk beside us, having a spiritual community that's non judgmental, where you can be authentic and you know these people have got your back, is profoundly supportive to our spiritual growth. It's absolutely critical to be honest with ourselves and having folks that we can talk with where we can be honest and we can say, look, I feel like crap today. I feel like I can't stop judging myself today. I feel so completely unworthy today. I feel terrified today. Whatever it is, you can be honest and tell people how you're feeling, not with a story. You don't have to tell the story again and again. We don't do that in my community, but we can be authentic about how we feel today, and we can ask for prayer and we can share prayer. We can give prayer. So having great prayer partners, it requires something. Be one. Aspire to be a great prayer partner, and you will naturally magnetize those people into your life, because like attracts like. All right, here we've come to number 7 in my program. And number 7 is to make a commitment to be honest with yourself. That was one of the hardest things for me. Make a commitment to be honest with yourself, not brutally honest. Don't need that. Thank you very much. But just be honest and to give yourself room to feel your feelings, which is something that I took a long time to learn how to do. Being able to feel your feelings without rushing to stop them and without judging them will help you to stop self sabotaging, and particularly to stop self sabotaging in the form of self medicating. I was such an expert at self medicating with food, with alcohol, with cigarettes, with working, with exercising, with talking on the phone, so many different ways. People self medicate with sex, with shopping, with cleaning, all kinds of things. You can self medicate with playing with your grandchildren or gardening or any number of things. People sabotage themselves playing small, not really going for it in their lives, totally convincing themselves not to try, not to go for it, and then blaming other people for how they feel and blaming other people for their sense of limitations. So, feeling your feelings, being honest with yourself, can be a confrontive, rigorous process, and it can be done with gentleness and with love and with kindness and with self compassion. And it is challenging, but with guidance and with clear, simple steps, you can begin to do this in ways that are highly effective. And it will prevent you from falling into a deep pit of despair, because sometimes people start to feel they've wasted their lives. Nobody has wasted their life, but you can harvest the wisdom from all the mistakes or errors or things that are unforgiven from the past. And you I I can tell you that when you know how to harvest that wisdom, then all those things you judged as a mistake, all the years the locusts have eaten, are given back to you with joy and a deep sense of personal gratitude. So you can move out of the habits of falling into a pit of despair or erupting into anger and feeling hurt and feeling like a victim. All of that you can let go of. This is something you can learn to do, and it will absolutely speed up your healing, get you into that place of quantum transformational healing of the blocks to love, so you can be happier and more emotionally and mentally free. In fact, this really is a path of true freedom. It's freedom from suffering. And it also helps us to get more and more alignment with spirit. And then we are able to perceive the loving choices, make higher choices, better choices more easily. So that is a major transformation in how we live our lives. Because when we're making better decisions, uh, life just gets so much easier, so much easier. And when we're willing to do the forgiveness work, then what that forgiveness work does is it unlocks the learning in our experiences that we've rejected. So, for instance, if something has happened that we're judging as bad and wrong, well, then we are not willing to learn from it because we've decided it shouldn't have happened. And that's our judgment. When we're in that place, how can we learn from our experience when we're saying it shouldn't have happened? We just can't. So that's why forgiveness starts unlocking all this wisdom in our awareness. And it's extraordinary how fast people can heal using these methods. So, all of this truly does begin to unleash our happiness. It begins to unleash the trust, the faith, and the beauty of life. And yay for the beauty of life. And the how to do all of this and so much more is what I share in my year-long Masterful Living program. And the reason that it's a year-long program is because it takes time to do all of this and to learn all of these things, because we're healing our heart and we're letting go of our attachments to the past. It doesn't have to take a long time, but it usually does. And this is why when people take a 6-week class or something like that, that's great. But when you can do this and you relax into all these different pieces over the course of the year, and they all fit together in a very beautiful way, you will see that you are doing that spiraling up and bringing everyone with you. And it is very encouraging and it's exciting. So, getting results, you get inspired to do more. You feel motivated to do more because it's working. So, in this year-long program, Masterful Living, what we're doing is we're undoing the ego patterns and the false beliefs and the false identification with the ego. And we're building that strong faith and connection with spirit that's so, so healing. And we get into this flow of love, self compassion. So many people don't have any concept of what it means to live a self loving life. But all of these different components together, they really are just a simple walking the talk and living the love and doing it all day long, not just for 15 minutes a day and 15 minutes at the end of the day. No, it's not that. It's doing it all day long so that you have this living spiritual practice that you take with you all the time. And that means that you incorporate it into your way of being. So, what I do in my Masterful Living program is I share with you step by step methods. I give you the exact practices of how to do all of this. And it works. I've been doing this for a long time. So it's my pleasure to assist you in finding the prayer partners and getting the support and discovering the pathway that works for you to shed the negative beliefs and patterns and the habits and the self perception that you need to let go of in order to be free to live by faith. And this year, I'm doing something different. I've got an early bird wait list for registration. And for the next few days, you can get on it right now. That way, you will be among the very first to know when registration opens, so you can jump on board right away. If you don't have a plan to deepen your spiritual practice and do all that forgiveness work, plus find your prayer partners and build your trust and faith in order to develop a commitment to be all in while learning to pray effectively, then consider joining me, because we're going to do all of that and so much more. And it's actually quite fun. And when we do it all together, there's a deep sense of security and connectedness that's beautiful. And like I said at the beginning, it's a relief as well to not be doing it on our own anymore. And in my next video, I'm going to share with you what it's like to go through this shift. And how someone who feels at the beginning of the year that it absolutely couldn't work for them, that person can have tremendous results. In fact, it's almost as if the folks who are so convinced that it cannot work for them have the best results, because they just go for it. That when you believe it won't work for you, then you're not in a place of knowing everything already. So you're like, okay, I'll try it. Probably it's not going to work for me, but I'll try it. And when people just keep trying this thing and that thing and seeing, oh, this does work for me. Oh my goodness, this works for me too. You build momentum, like I was talking about, and that momentum is gold. It makes all the difference in the world. So make sure you're signed up for my early bird wait list, and you'll get notified of the registration. You'll get notified of the next video. And I'm so glad I get to share this with you. I really am. Thank you for watching and listening. Mwah!